Welcome, everybody. That did take a little bit longer than we expected, but we are on track and ready to go with our next speaker presentation from Mastermyne Group. David Sykes is the General Manager of the Underground business, and he began his career in the UK performing various operational and statutory roles. Prior to joining Mastermyne in 2012, David worked as a mining operations manager with Leighton Mining, having responsibility for 2 surface coal operations and underground coal interests. Over the years, David has performed various roles within Mastermyne, including Executive Manager of Strategy, Technology and Growth, and is often appointed as the Acting CEO. So speaking to you today in regards to the Gregory Crinum Underground and Colliery mine projects, please welcome David Sykes to the stage.
Thanks, Nicole. I hope the technology is right and I'm actually sharing everything now. So based on
looks good
on
from
that,
here, David. You're all good to go.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for the whole team and Connect Coal for the opportunity for Mastermyne to discuss these 2 operations as a project stage. But before I get into that, if I can, I would like to just acknowledge a serious accident that occurred at Gregory Crinum operation on the 14th of September. There was a significant fall of ground in one of the drifts that we were remediating to get access into the underground workings. In this fall of ground, one worker was trapped and recovered, sent to Rockhampton Hospital, where he later released and recovering well at home and well supported by everyone. But it's with great sadness that we had to come to the terms. One of our colleagues and workmates was fatally injured in that accident. Over the weeks that followed, the business struggled with the tragedy, and our thoughts and support has been with family and workmates and loved ones. We continue to support them as we come to grips with the gravity of the accident and the impact it's had on his family, his loved ones and his workmates. Investigations by the relevant authorities are ongoing, and we continue to cooperate fully with these investigations, and based on that is why I won't be making any comments about the accident, just to allow these investigations to run their proper course. And we're slowly bringing the Crinum operation back online, and I will talk to that later in the presentation. Will take some time for us to move on, and we do it with a heavy heart, but we use the tragedy to sharpen our focus and be even better about the way we operate our businesses moving forward. And I'll just mention a bit more when we get to the slide, if that's okay. So just before we start, I have to put the disclaimer up. It'll be in the slide pack. What it really says is, although we are very honest and true with what we say, don't rely on anything I tell you today. A bit about the Mastermyne business. So we've been around for 25 years in the mining underground coal sector, supporting all the industry. We've got a large footprint in Queensland around the Bowen Basin, and have had on and off a significant influence around the New South Wales and the Wollongong region. Established in 96, ASX listed in 2010. We've got a strong order book currently in our contract services and contract operations, and a lot of those are with the majors in the industry. All our services are linked to production activities. Although it's coal underground, it is all centered around support in services and operations and production activities. I've got a large strategic fleet of equipment to support all operations, and that's growing, every month. And we've got a growth strategy that's linked to both the contract mine operator, which is 2 of the projects I'll talk about today, and an expansion into the metal sector, the hard rock metal sector. So I will mention a little bit about where we're positioned on that at the back end of this presentation. Like I said, we've had a number of years of significant improvement in our safety performance, and it just highlights the tragic incident at Crinum that irrespective of how hard you think you're trying, there is always opportunity. And in particular, looking at the reliable organisation approach, you really do need to be uncomfortable with good and actually embrace the bad information and actually ask questions a lot more often. So, unfortunate, yeah. Up until that point, and still now, we have a strong total recordable injury frequency rate, which is a lagging indicator, but it is an industry standard by which people are measured, and we've made improvement year on year over the last 3 years in that. And mainly that focus has been around the way we recognise how much our people can take on as information and how we accept good and bad news. So that's how we've changed our approach over that period. We continue our journey towards becoming an HRO organisation, and that will be done with more relent now based on recent events. We're managing the change in risk profile based on the fact that we're moving into contract operations as well as contract services, and then with the addition of the metal sector. We have maintained our certification across all the quality assurance and the AS accreditation across all the Mastermyne group business. Contract operations update. This is just a little one on contract services, including the recent Crinum and Cook projects. Our headcount's increased to around about 943. We're quite reliable and stable, and there's been no material change in the order book. Our Wilson's mining business, which provide specialist strata consolidation equipment, materials and services, continues to increase its market share. The mine site training business has seen a lot of strong growth in inquiries and as a result from the demand for training across all sectors. We've extended a number of our contracts over the last 12 months and are still working on future extensions as well. And although the labour market underground coal is tightening, and that's a very similar story for the metals. At the moment, for the pipeline and our commitments, it's not creating too big a drama. Just recapping our year, unfortunately, even though we were at a good TRIFR and a good safety improvement program over the last 2 or 3 years, we did have to deal with a tragedy. We fell in line with our guidance to the market. Being a public company, we landed the end of the year in line with the guidance. Strong div paid. We've got a strong order book. We're changing our business around operations and restructuring the whole business, which I'll talk about later, to encompass the hard rock. Our learning and development programs, which are heavily investing in growing our own people for our business, really strong, and we were holding till the acquisition, which I'll talk about later, a good strong net cash position, but we do generate cash strongly over the course of the 12 months. So that sets us up well for funding the capital required into the operations, all mine operations. Just to follow that on, that's how we finished the year. July, August, pretty strong cash balance, generating good cash, good investment in capex on equipment to support the operations, and then good access to loan facilities and funding for future growth. Moving on to the Gregory Crinum operation, a little bit about that. I won't go word for word on this with you guys. So it's a hard coking coal operation based around Emerald, the Emerald region. The Gregory open cut mine operations ceased in October 2012 and resumed in 2019. They're originally run by BMA and then were purchased by Sojitz. I'll talk a bit about that company after this. Their approach was centered around remnant mining. Their underground operation ceased in 2016, and then we started a re-entry program planned in 2020 and started mid-21. And I'll talk obviously more about that and where we're up to. That underground approach was centered around an increased recovery of the original asset. So working in and around the previous underground workings and utilizing a production methodology that allows that. And then the washery and train loadout would be across at the Gregory operation, which is the surface operation. The project requires quite a lot of re-establishment of the whole surface infrastructure, re-entry in the Crinum drifts that had previously been sealed and basically abandoned. And we'll access those areas of coal close to the pit bottom, the original pit bottom in the Crinum South operation. The place change operating process I'll talk about a little bit later. I won't go into too much technical detail. Mining people like to talk that, but I won't. I'll just talk about the logic. And then we're looking at a 6.5 year life cycle just for this area of access of the asset, and there's more to do after that. So it's a good opportunity. At the moment, we've identified out of that area close to 1 million tonnes reserve, and at peak performance around about 1.9 million tonnes ROM a year. And the contractual arrangement is $1 per tonne delivered to the ROM stockpile, and which means that none of the underground really affects any of the surface operations other than the operational interaction that has to be accounted for. Sojitz Blue is a subsidiary of a Japanese company, Sojitz Corporation. Sojitz Coal Mining was established in 2002, a joint venture minority party with in Minerva. 2010, Sojitz Coal Mining purchased the initial 51%, which meant that they were then the majority shareholder in the Minerva coal mine. Sojitz then acquired Gregory Crinum from BMA in 2019, and then started to recommence operations on the surface. The open cut mine will have an annual capacity around 3 million tonnes, and when fully operational, mine life of more than 20 years. And I know they're currently working on extensions of all of that as well. So this is the previous Crinum South facility, which was their first underground for BMA. And so as you can see, there's quite an extensive surface facility on the site. The buildings and part of the buildings are being used by the Gregory operation as an easy access to their northern pit, and the remainder of the facility, which used to be the underground area, has been separated out for the underground operation. On the right, it just shows their layout relevant to the approvals. The mining plan, as I said before, is basically to fit in between all the previous areas that were not recovered from the longwall mining process. And that's not because it's not a good asset. It just didn't fit regarding the methodology that longwall recovery requires. We're talking up to 4 meters to 4.4 meters thickness of coal. The area that was left is really the best roof conditions for the place change mining process. And because there's quite a volume of water that was stored in the old mine workings, then the production process will follow the down dip level as we recover the water, and then we go in to mine the areas. We won't mine an area until we've dropped the water level in all those adjacent areas. Place change mining is a very simple, low capital cost production method. It's sort of limited at the top end of tons, but it is very productive in the right circumstances. So place change simply means that each part of the sequence is done separately, and you move equipment around to actually follow the process, ultimately resulting in coal being produced and then loaded onto a conveyor and sent to the surface. Like I said, our process takes it to a run-of-mine stockpile, and then that will then be recovered by Gregory Crinum and processed through their prep plant, hauled to the Gregory site and hauled and processed there. Just a little bit about the logic around that. Won't go into too much detail, but the process requires a fairly strong roof component in the geology, and the green coloured areas are basically where the strongest roof is around the old mine workings, and that's the area where the production process that we will bring to Crinum Underground is focused at. There's a few constraints around that, but basically that's the areas that we've chosen based on roof strength index. There's other requirements associated with that too. There's a couple of areas that are actually protected on the surface, and therefore the methodology has to account for ensuring minimal subsidence around those regions, and that's what's being accounted for. To get access into the underground mine, and as part of the re-entry process, we had to set up a ventilation circuit. There will be 4 stages to this. So the first one is to allow a staged re-entry into underground, which was based on fully assessing the environment and then locking in what the recovery plan is. The second stage is to provide quantities for remediation of all the work areas. The third stage is then starting production. So it's a temporary ventilation arrangement on the main, on what was previously the main shaft. And then the third one is the full ventilation system established from the ventilation shaft, which is just around about the pit bottom area. As I spoke before, there are a few constraints and around the whole mining design. There's some geological structures. The seam across geological influences changes thickness. There's some soft roof and floor areas, and there's currently still areas of the abandoned mines which have been used for water storage. So that's in the process of being recovered, and some of the little snaps are there showing the setup. So we established a dewatering station, and that was the commissioning of the dewatering system for the southern blocks. The Lilyvale waterhole is a specific area of interest, and it has a special lease arrangements, which is what has to be protected and supported. And we also have to account for the fact that there's future surface operations that encroach right at the eastern or the southeastern side of the planned areas. We established this has evolved over the time. So initially we established a clear project structure, which is how you would do any capital works project, which had a pretty much a diligence capital works team, and then a functional team for on-site delivery. That very quickly evolved into the SSE for the operation having to be the link between the steering committee and the whole capital works program, because you soon realize that everything that you do on site is, even though it's a capital works project, it is actually an operating coal mine. So, and as such, you have to work it through that way. So we quickly changed that around, but that's how we originally set the approach up for the pre-work and procurement, and then we moved it into a more operationally focused approach. Program schedule. There's a lot of work going on. So all the execution of the contracts on the left is all the scheduled works. There was milestones and timelines based on that. All areas have been progressing well, and obviously the tragedy on the 14th of September has meant that we've actually had to reset part of that program, which is the critical path access to the underground production areas. And because we're still working through that process with the regulator, we're actually we have to update that part of the program, but mainly all the other works is still progressing. And if you look at similar on equipment, so we had a significant amount of equipment to bring into the project for production work. The only change to that has been now our delay to site from following the incident. We actually basically suspended all operations for a period, and then gradually started getting into recommencing some of the surface works a month or so later. So that's a rescheduled forecast now. Where does that fit in the mine operator journey? So obviously to re-enter the mine, it was decided that Sojitz appointed Mastermyne as the coal mine operator, and that was done in around about September, October 2020. And then we started to look at putting all the processes in place to actually do a staged re-entry into the underground workings. Quite a bit of work involved in that. And obviously that's when you start to establish a safety health management system for the works that needed to be done. And that's how we approached it. There's quite a bit of work on first risk assessing the broad brush, do the broad brush, then do the specific elements of the principal hazards, and then start work on the management system, safety management system for the re-entry works. So we then mobilized an early works team and started that. We consulted all the way through with the regulator, RSHQ. We had involvement from the industry stakeholders, and we also had a heavy involvement from the QMRS as who were going to support that process. And in order to meet that obligation as the coal mine operator, then we had to work through obtaining the QMRS membership, so we could secure their services as and when we might need them, and then engage in a mutual assistance mines rescue agreement until we were able to establish a substantial workforce and build our own rescue capability. And then following all of that, we started project establishment. And the timeline around that, there was the early stages, initial concepts around 2018. Then feasibility completed in January 19. Got approval for that from both the Sojitz and Mastermyne boards at the back end, in June 2019. Moved into phase one, which was to re-ventilate and inspect the drifts prior to actually re-entry. Once we'd done that, then we were going to move into a care and maintenance period to build up the full re-entry plan. Then we were going to effect the full re-entry. So care and maintenance following that while we're building the full program, we had a few people on site that were then starting to do the lower level tasks of an operator and starting to recommission some of the equipment, services, and re-establish the administration areas and so forth. Stage one, phase two was then the inspections from the seal sites underground into the whole of the mine, and that was to be done then by the QMRS personnel. So the first stage entry was done by Mastermyne personnel, which went to the sealed area, and then the second one was beyond the sealed, previously sealed, and then on to the previous underground workings to get a full assessment of the conditions in the mine. That was undertaken, and the stage two moved from that is then commenced the recovery works and the capital works program to actually re-establish the whole infrastructure, which I'll give an update on. Just some happy snaps. We're quite surprised. This was what we found when we first went back underground. Bearing in mind that this hadn't been used since 2006. Quite a reasonable condition down to the sealed area at the irrespirable atmosphere behind, which it actually wasn't. We ventilated it to get in. And then the stage one, phase two, QMRS did the rest of the underground inspection. So they then had some happy snaps of actually what the rest of the mine looked like, which gave us, a good idea of what the remediation work looked like, but were surprised about the fact that it was in reasonable condition. And there was on certain select areas that had really been impacted by the stand. We then started to set up. So the one on the left is the first mine ventilation system. Looks a little bit agricultural, but it actually was very effective, and it allowed us to ventilate sufficient that we could then do the underground inspection. And then we started to remediate the administration building and set it up for an operations team. Where we got to following that, when we started the construction work on the infrastructure, we first focused on recovering the shaft. The shaft is 6 meter diameter and it had previously been filled and capped in 3 places, concrete capped. So we had to start a recovery of that, and then a re-entry into the portal drifts, stage re-entry into that. So we set up ventilation for both of those, temporary ventilation, to get those 2 things on track, and also continued on the surface infrastructure, conveying systems and electrical network and services, water and air and other things. During all that period, we did a fair amount of recruiting, and our management team were mainly focused around the Emerald region, or moved there for the work, which was good. We set up a clean skin program, which attracted people from the Emerald region, and they are now part of that workforce, even though it's only in construction. Previously, the Crinum operation had terrific reputation, and we didn't want to lose that. So we are well connected with the local communities, and in that we also call Mackay a local community as well. That's where our business is based, and we're also looking at as many times that we can investing in other programs which supports the health and well-being and social development of the region. Just a little bit there for a communication from the Emerald Regional News when we first actually started to re-access the mine. And here's just some of the earlier relationships that we're working to, and there's many more now. Obviously, with a uplifting activity, and it is additional volume in the region. It is not just moving people around to provide services. It's adding volume into the region, and therefore adding resources, and therefore all the things that come with that. So what next? So previously we were did some work with Coal on re-establishing operations in the previous Cook Colliery, and I'll talk a little about where we're up to with that. And the first phase was to bring the operation out of care and maintenance, and that started more or less 2 or 3 months ago. And we said at the time, both organisations consider carefully the fact that Cook Colliery had a long mining history, and we had to come up with an approach to that was actually recognised that there's limitations, and that we have to focus on operating the right way. Based on the fact that it's never going to be a full longwall operation and it can be reduced back to a simple bottom pillar or partial extraction mine, that was the approach that we took. We're also, and still are, engaged with Sojitz Underground as the appointed mining contractor as they progress through all their feasibility and approvals work, although they do have an approval to produce from that asset currently. The Cook Colliery project, so Cook also is based around the Blackwater region, but close to Emerald, and it's been around for a long time, as I said, and it's had some success around partial extraction techniques, and then moved into longwall operations, and has over the last 2 or 3 years been pretty much moved into care and maintenance when Q-Coal actually took over the ownership. Over the leases, conditions over the lease are quite fairly inconsistent. There's good areas and there's challenging areas, and it's quite constrained in really all four extents, without doing some significant work to move up into the north around the Kennedy area. So with all that in mind, we selected a couple of domains or areas to actually focus on, and decided to treat them differently in how we actually operate. The mine design focuses around working the Argo seam and the Castor seam, which is above, and showing the mine plans here, there is extensive mine workings at this mine already. It has been extensively mined, so we had to take an approach where we were cognizant of that, but we actually pretty much set up the production operations separately and independently so that we could have a significant level of control over how they perform. Two different kind of approaches. There's a cut and flip approach where it can be done, and then there's a chevron and secondary extraction approach where it can't. Where are we at the moment? So we stage one works. We call stage one coming out of care and maintenance. They're well progressed, and during that period, we are looking to transition the old operator status across to Mastermyne. Currently, Q-Coal is still the operator. Mastermyne currently has the mine manager, Q-Coal the SSE, and we're doing a review of the safety health management system as part of that process, and then progressing works in accordance with the ability to actually bring equipment, people, and where the system allows. Commercial contract, well progressed in negotiations of that. Only had a meeting today where we're probably 2 or 3 weeks away of getting the commercial arrangements in place. We're looking to start accessing the production areas. This said originally first quarter 2022. That's middle of that quarter is actually where we think we're going to sit now. And then there's a 6-year asset, but we're looking at a 4-year contract term and give everyone a chance to actually assess the full potential of that asset. And it does fit into a regional presence. It is not a standalone operation. Fits into the Q-Coal regional coal presence, and is part of that process. All the key equipment that we need for this operation has been sourced. We've got it moved around, and we started some overhauls now. They said we were have it parked in workshops. Some of that equipment is almost ready to bring to site. We've picked out of all the previous owned assets from the client, and we're adding those into the works program moving forward, where they are the right equipment and they are reliable enough to do the work as we're planning it. And and I don't think that bottom's right. The bottom part is not associated with. Sorry about that. That's pretty much the Sojitz operation. Just a quick one. We have recently gone through an acquisition process, and after some due diligence and a long-standing approach to try to get this to happen, we acquired Pybar Mining Services. I'm only going to speak briefly about this, but it is recent acquisition to the Mastermyne business. They've got 15 projects, and this is all in hard rock metals. But it's the same contract services, basically, that we, as Mastermyne, have provided to underground coal. Strong order book, big tender pipeline, over 1,000 employees. TRIFR is quite a bit higher than we would like, so obviously we'll be working with the guys on that one, and they've got significant amounts of equipment to suit the works that they undertake. It gives us a specialised but diverse underground mining service group. It broadens our commodity exposure. It gives us that material entry into hard rock rather than incremental, and it gives us a platform for growth in both areas from volume. And that's just the capabilities of people would understand or would have seen Pybar around before. They do the whole suite of services from development, raise bore, production, shotcrete, and all the capability and production drilling requirements for a whole operation. What does that mean for the business beyond Pybar? Well, it basically means that we'll just regroup the business slightly, and this is not new information. This has already been published in the market. We'll set the previous Mastermyne business up as a rock, which will always see the three functional areas around the mine operations from Mastermyne, which is the underground coal mine operator business. There's the coal contracting services, which as Mastermyne has been in for 25 years or more. We have the other Mastermyne services, which are the Wilson's mining products and the mine site training product. And then we add on to that the Pybar hard rock contract services business. So a little bit of a change around, but it's really just to simplify and keep the managing groups shallow. What that gives us, it gives us the mine operations with a strong order book in that, and obviously a lot ahead of us in the next couple of years. Coal contracting services, we have maintained that in a strong position, and that's been our benchmark or our base load, and we still do have a good strong order book in that area, and with the way we structure the business, that will continue. Our other services growing, and then we bring in the hard rock contracting services into the business, and that's the scale of the operation post that acquisition. With that's a mix of the Mastermyne operations versus the Pybar, so it's quite balanced, similar operation to what Mastermyne were, and it gives us a lot of opportunity around synergies of systems, process, commercial frameworks, finance, HRIR, and so on and so forth. So a good synergy for the business. And that's basically just a pipeline slide. I won't talk about all of that kind of stuff. You'll get a copy of this, so you can sort of look through all of that. And yeah, and basically that's about it for the presentation. I think we go into some Q&A now if anyone's got a question.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I do have a few questions from the delegates. Can you tell us what the quality of water is like, and if you're planning on using any of the water recovered back into process operations?
Yeah, good question. Nicole, do I stop the presentation now, or just leave it up? Is it okay?
If you can unshare that if you like, and then we're just bigger on screen. I'm sure everybody'd love that.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, good question. As part of the feasibility work for the Crinum operation in particular, we did set up the system so that we can reuse quite a lot of the underground water as raw water for the mining operations. So yes, so it's sort of been recycled. It's a fair way away from processing, but I'm sure Gregory would look at the quality and the opportunity to use that rather than raw water, rather than feed water. So yeah, at least a third of the top up for the raw water for the underground operation is being recycled and treated, and then which is from the water that we're actually bringing out from underground now. That'll go into the raw water dam and it treated, and then we'll be able to use it in the underground operations.
It's a fantastic utilisation of something that would generally be waste.
Yeah, well, it was put there because no one had a use for it at the time. And so, unfortunately, we have to move it to do what we need to do. And therefore, it makes sense to use as much of it as we can and not rely on the supply in the region.
And a far more sustainable development plan as well. Are you planning on any upgrades to the stacking and reclaiming processes as part of the future projects that will go out for tender or expression of interest?
Not locally at the site. So the stacking facility for the Crinum ROM stockpile is basically around what used to be their existing ROM stockpile, which was built for huge volumes compared to this process. So the infrastructure is mainly there. The way we approach it is on a scale basis for what we need. And I don't know if Sojitz Gregory are looking to actually have to expand any of their ROM treatment or coal stock and recovery process. I don't think so, to actually accommodate the volumes we're talking about. But yeah, I just know the localized site where we will deliver to is more than sufficient. At the Cook Colliery, again, that fortunately the more recent iterations in the last 4 or 5 years increase the capacity there for longwall production. And again, the infrastructure is designed around significant more volume than we intend to produce from this process. Yeah.
And as the future procurement opportunities are released, will there be a company-wide approach, or will the projects be listed separately for those opportunities?
There's a company-wide approach. They are both separate entities as a business. But the Mastermyne approach is that we look for synergies around our partners, and therefore most of the operations will be looking to Mastermyne corporate for their guidance on who are the right people to choose and what's our relationship already and why that's the best choice before we go and splinter off. Obviously, there'll be occasions where their sites want to just look locally and support local, and that is all supported as well. But there's plenty of opportunity for synergy around volume, and that will come through the Mastermyne group.
Are you experiencing any challenges or anticipating any challenges with the skilled workforce shortage that Australia is experiencing at the moment?
Well, yes, we are expecting the skills-based shortfall in the future years. Like I said in the presentation, we have a real strong network in the region, as particularly this region, the Bowen Basin. So it's fortunate that both of these two operations are close. So we're not anticipating a great issue with these two projects, but sustaining that and expanding that definitely is. And because we have our own training business, and because we've been through this journey a couple of times before in downturns in the coal sector, we're quite equipped to actually build our own and develop our own people and bring new blood into the industry and actually start that skills-based program. And we're doing that right now in these two projects. And the benefit that being the operator brings you is that you can make the decision that you actually are going to bring people in and grow them, and that you're not relying on a three-way, a triad of agreements between yourself and your client and their shareholders or their corporate to actually work out if it's beneficial, particularly because you're a contractor. So now we are well suited. We've got the experience. We've previously in the downturns, we brought more than 400 people into the industry. So we'll just rely on that experience and actually work through that process for ourselves.
And it's a great way to future-proof the business and its opportunities as you grow.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we can hold our hand out now and say that we can see, I think it's close to 80% of our supervisory positions have over the last 5 or 6 years came through our Clean Skin program.
Okay, excellent. There are several more questions, but we are running short of time. So I will ask you to leave us now and join your booth. And everybody can actually head to the Mastermyne Group booth and speak with David and ask those relevant questions in relation to Gregory Crinum and the Cook Colliery Mine projects. Thank you, David, for your time this morning. That was really informative.
Thanks, Nicola.
Now I'd like to introduce you to one of our sponsors, L&F Transfers. L&F Transfers since 2011 have safely travelled hundreds and thousands of kilometres throughout Queensland, transporting some of the most prominent and successful mining companies in Australia. I'd like to welcome to the stage Lindsay Ward, Director of L&F Transfers.
Thanks, Nicola. How are you, mate? G'day. So I've got a short presentation and a bit of words to go through, so I'll start off. We don't inspire to retire, we inspire to create here. We create sustainable, meaningful jobs which ensure all passengers and staff make it home safely, on time, every time, 24 hours, 365 days a year through professional standards, transparency and honesty that is focused on service and serving the community in which we operate in.
I will let you know that I'm actually seeing you on screen, not your presentation, and that coffee looks really good. I'd like one myself. But if you are sharing...
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. But yeah, the presentation will come after. I'll bugger that up a little bit, but you'll be right.
No, that's fine. Let's just stay with your lovely...
Thanks, Nicola. Cheers, mate. So we create lifestyles and tourism opportunities through our ever-expanding resources that strive to cultivate greatness. I'm Lindsay Ward and welcome to my companies, L&F Transfers and Northern Conquest Charters. Today, you might ask who L&F is. We are a transport company that specialises in moving people, which is our greatest asset. Today, I'm focused on L&F Transfers, our ISO accredited safe and reliable workforce transportation specialist. And I'd like you to sit back and relax and enjoy our presentation on L&F Transfers, which will get played now.
L&F Transfers is much more than just a transport company. With 10 years of industry experience and thousands of kilometres driven every week, moving your most precious cargo is what we do, and we do it well. At L&F, you can expect safety. We aim to achieve flawless safety outcomes by operating above and beyond relevant health and safety regulations, standards, and transport laws. Driving high quality, stringent safety through our industry-leading operational management system, and equipping our services with GPS tracking, in-vehicle monitoring system, monitored emergency response, live streaming, CCTV cameras, and defibrillation and trauma kits. We're at the forefront of transport safety and environmental innovation, with fleet investment that is heavily weighted towards manufacturers and the highest industry safety and reliability ratings. Expect reliability. Our fleet of over 40 luxurious coaches deliver robust, dependable, clean and safe transport. The L&F Transfers fleet mix aims to optimise flexibility and adaptability to your passenger transport requirements. Your L&F Transfers crew operates on an on-time policy. We understand your time is critical to success, so we hold a fully equipped fleet and team on standby in the unlikely event of a delay due to mechanical or technical issues. Expect efficiency. Our workshops and bases are strategically located for ease of access around Australia. L&F Transfers up-to-date, fully equipped workshops easily handle all our fleet, and our one-stop shops will bring in any specialist needed. Traditional customer service means you can expect courteous and timely responses, helpful assistance with efficient organisation, a warm, relaxed welcome to our passengers, safe, on-time arrival, modern, well-appointed vehicles in top mechanical condition. LNF Transfers is dedicated to supporting the local community by sponsoring events, engaging with local representatives, and collaborating on community projects, delivering the best transport experience for clients and customers all across Australia. LNF Transfers, moving you safely, reliably, efficiently.
Remind me I was on mute. Apologies. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Please reach out if you need any passenger transport, whether on the road through LNF Transfers or on the water through our new edition Northern Conquest Charters and soon to be air. LNF will have all your safe and reliable transport logistics covered. Talk soon, hopefully, and enjoy your day. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much, Lindsay, and thank you to LNF Transfers for being conference sponsors today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to be heading to networking. I just wanted to revisit one point from the Mastermyne presentation and just advise you, in light of the recent event at Gregory Crinum, as of 28th of October this year, 105 Australian workers have not gone home, and that's just in 2021. And I'm sure you'll join me in saying that our thoughts and prayers are with the Mastermyne family, and especially to the family of the worker that didn't return home that day. But right now we are going to networking, and then I'll be joining you back on the live stage for the ICN presentation at 10:45. I'll be moving you across to networking now. Thanks again to our sponsors, Jobs in Central Queensland, LNF Transfers, Makita, and our other industry partners that we'll speak to later in the sessions. Networking now, and we'll see you shortly. Thanks, everybody.